Independent City Administrator Matt Brooke with us this morning on our FYI show. Because we get the mayor in on a monthly basis. We don't get Matt in very often. We twisted his arm to come in, so didn't break it, but we got him to come in. Talking about city business, but anyways, Matt, 5 years. You mentioned that a few weeks ago, 5 years as city administrator. When you came, what do you remember? 5 years.
It's pretty amazing. I think when it comes back to any time in life, what we remember most is the people. And I think it's, from the day I came in from interviewing back in December of, 2016, great department heads, great personnel to work with, great community members, from all the different organizations, and I think that's the biggest thing is, we always like to say times fly when you're having fun. And I think if you surround yourself with smarter people, and people that like to smile versus frown, I think the life ticks by even faster. So it's been super enjoyable. I think I go into the second place of all time for the longest tenure of city administrators. I think George Langman has me at 13 years. So
George was around a long time.
He was. But I just passed Jeff Koister, who retired after 40 years. So he was here about 5.3 years overall.
When you came, it was your first city job. What was 5 years ago, what was your thinking?
It's kind of like the honeymoon, it's all wonderful. And then all of a sudden you get back to reality. No, I don't know. I think it's very interesting because a lot of my experiences, we always say, certain doors open for certain reasons, and you have experiences in life that will lead you to other ones. And it's like everything that they trained and placed in my brain of how to coach, teach, mentor, how to lead, how to do planning, all that stuff kind of fits perfectly into when you're running a city. Because once again, it's about people. How do you get people to optimize, not only themselves, but all those that they're in charge of? It's about setting a vision that people can get behind and see. And I think the biggest piece too is, sort of like along the psychological operations that we deal with in the military is changing the mindset. It's because I don't know if it's like fatalism, you get to a point in your life and everything becomes grumpy and crabby. Not happened to me, but sometimes it happens to people where, I don't know, I just find more joy in seeing people succeed and seeing things be done because, someday, in your days pretty soon, I hear, down the road, we're going to be on our front porch and we'll be done. And what we're going to look back and think about is not the challenging times, is not the troubling times. It's going to be those exciting times of those people that we spent with that made our life, even if it's Crosby out here, the cat, it's going to be those things and those people and animals, et cetera, that made our life enjoyable while we had so very little time on earth. So,
and you mentioned if people don't know the background, Matt Brooke was in the military for 20-something years. Is that?
That's what I hear. Yeah.
Yeah. But you decided to retire from there, and
sure.
You had another job before you came to city administrator.
I did.
I had to ask a question. Do you remember one of the first people you met when you came to your interview?
Yeah, I actually, one of the few first peoples were actually the council members, and so in the Mayor Volich at the time. But all the council members, and they grilled me good. No, they were very nice, and they asked pointed questions, and it's really like I can remember meeting the staff with Anita Dalton and crew there, and that kind of was I don't know if you remember way back when we talked, but that was really a big reason why Jody and I decided, just because of the department heads that they had great foundation, they had a great track record of doing good stuff, and it just looked like a great opportunity, to come to Eastern Iowa.
Well, you even remember says I was even there.
Yes, you were. I was going to tell you were the hardest person. No, it was well done because they actually did it with citizens. They did it with different businesses. They did it with the council members and the mayor, and then they did it with the department head. So you had like a round robin, and plus round robin wrestling sports. That's what I did my whole life. That's what you get ready for, and and the great news is the truth never changes. So when you're asked questions, this is what I do. If you don't know, I'll find out. And that's why it's so important to have a good staff, because you just can't really do anything in life by yourself.
5 years in the job, have you changed the way you do things, or do you still do things the way you started on day one?
Yeah, I think the thing that we keep the same, or I keep the same, is basically the attitude. Because, when people come in and maybe they might just be filling out the city to do a new development or to do some housing or something, it sets the stage. First impressions, last a lifetime. So, the mayor and I always make sure that when we greet them and meet them, we talk to them and get them excited about the city. Just recently, when we were talking about retail strategies, we did the same thing, and they're really pumped to come. And it's not to bring other businesses to give better competition or more competition to other business, but I just see it as we have a chance to continually to grow our community, and we should be trying every avenue to do that. And so I think the other thing too is manage the expectations, because a lot of people will see me as a very positive person and can do and can get stuff done, and they want to take advantage of that. And so if they don't get their way, then they might be sad or grumpy, and then they might espouse that, whether on the air or elsewhere, right? And we can't make everybody happy. We're here to have rules in place. We're trying to follow those rules. People like to throw around the term like big government. I'm like, no, I've seen big government. Big government is in Washington, D.C. That's big government. Here, we're just trying to make sure that all people can live well. They can live and enjoy themselves and not be distracted by things that maybe shouldn't be going on, whether it's disruptive neighbors, whether it's things that are just happening in the town. So I think for me, pretty much I've stayed pretty much true to who I am as far as that. I find real good joy. I think one of the biggest one is I spend a good deal of time with the council members, probably more so than when I first got here, because you're just running 100 miles an hour. But now it's like the more communication with them, the better, because it's, that's why they were elected. They're not necessarily elected to be leaders. They're elected to govern. And so they need myself and my team to, be that leadership side, to do that coaching, teaching, and mentoring, to bring those things, those facts to them, so that they can better be aware of how to make that decision, because we're not putting policy in place that's going to change the rotation of the earth. We're just doing policy things that will make things better here and to continue to make Clinton a better place to be.
Matt, as an observation, you often talk about, and maybe you know this, is a lot of quality of life projects. You seem to, as an observation, promote those kinds of things the city should be doing. Why is that? As an observation, that seems to be something you talk a lot about.
Yeah, I think it probably stems for spending just about 4 years in Iraq and Afghanistan, where they don't have a quality of life. And I think far too often we take everything for our lives for granted, because they don't even have a post office. We get Amazon tomorrow and we complain about it. If it's 2 days, we can order from Walmart or Jewel-Osco or Hy-Vee, and we get the food that night or tomorrow, where they may have to grow their own, or they may have to travel to a bigger city to be able to do that. So I think quality of life is, if you're not happy at home, you won't be happy at work. And if you're not happy at home and doing stuff with your family and friends, you're not going to be happy overall. And I really think it starts with the house. And my meaning of that is where you live. It doesn't necessarily have to be a house, it could be an apartment. But if you're unhappy with where it should be your safety valve is, where you or your significant other are, it's going to make your whole rest of your life difficult. You could have the best job in the world, but if you come home to a poopy home, it's not very fun, right? And so I think it all starts with people having a safe and secure place to live, right? And then you go from there, and then you start adding, and not really adding. An old adage, from day one in the Army is, you always make your foxhole better. And so that's why with quality of life, I think we should always make what we have better. If there's a chance to maybe grow new things and do that, that's good. But if you're not taking care of the small stuff, you'll never get to the big stuff. And so that was kind of like the vision coming in and working with the department heads and saying, it's going to take time, but we have to slowly improve and show that to our citizens that we want to continually get better. Because if you don't get better, what happens? You regress, you go backwards, right? So I think it really comes down to is, if we're not enjoying our life, you could have, like I said, the best job in the world, you could have the best toys in the world. All that's irrelevant, because if you don't have a safe place to put your head down at night, and I've maybe been in a few of those places where, you probably don't go to sleep because you don't know if you'll wake up, right? So I think that's part of it too. And it's part of my side of who I am as a human being is that, I think everybody should get a shot at, being able to be successful. They should be able to get further education, whether it's in the technology fields or the tech fields or, going off to school. And I want people, when they do depart here, to do what I did as a kid, is I couldn't wait to leave, right? But then I spent my whole time wanting to come back to Iowa, right? Because people don't understand is they may complain about this or that, but we really have it good when you start to look across the world. We're not in Ukraine right now, for example, or we weren't in Afghanistan, Iraq, if you will. And so I think exposure to what's going on in the world firsthand kind of changes your heart and your mind. And it really goes back to, how do we do those simple things best? And it really goes back to, when people feel better about their security of where they live, they actually act better.
And everybody, do you think, I guess you're trying, or just by what you do, I guess, infuses the community with that personality? Because if you believe every community or whatever has a personality, and every community is different, has a different personality, either on purpose or by just the way it is. Do you think you're trying, or you accomplishing, maybe getting the Clinton community to believe that those things you just talked about?
Yeah, I think definitely. And it even goes, I got a lot of energy from the Synergy kids, right? And so they're going to have it's a surprise, but for those listening, you can catch the surprise, but they're going to have the I Believe in Clinton. It's going to be on the Clinton flag that was designed by Morgan Wilding, who's a local resident and goes to our high school now, but he was in middle school there.
And somebody's credit union got to display it first.
Yeah, I don't know who that might have been. Exactly. But I think it really goes back to is, being in a lot of units in the military, because, you're always on the move, you're always transitioning. That unit really took its lead from the leader. And if you have poopy leaders, we'll say, we use poopy for our grandkids,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you have leaders that are all about themselves and they don't care about others, you'll see that. And so the great thing with me is I have no alternative motive except to make Clinton better. I don't gain anything by being here except for the joy to see the city grow. Because you have to put it in perspective. We're the 1,551st size city in the United States of America. So there's 1,550 other city administrators out there that have bigger problems and bigger things to deal with than myself, for example, or 1,550 other mayors. So, I think we always have to put that in perspective. And the things that have been going on with the chamber and CRDC, and with the Visitor Bureau and with the city is really unheard of. And I'm trying to kind of dig through some stats to see how we can compare this. But when I look at the size 13th city to the 23rd city of in Iowa, from the Waukees of the world to the Johnsons, who's really in the same population, we're right with them, if not ahead of them, on what's going on with business expansion. You talk about ADM expanding, LyondellBasell with their updates, with Nestle Purina's expansion it's unheard of, and adding jobs to that. I just think it's really neat, the area we're in, because we literally have 9,000 folks that get in their cars and drive away from Clinton every day to go work, right? Or excuse me, get in their cars and drive to Clinton to work, 9,000. And then of the over 13,000 that actually, are working, that live in Clinton, 6,700 of them drive somewhere else to go work. So we're really a multi-transversing city that's on the move. And so you think of us as like 24,469, but really we're like 65,000. And you know this, as you travel around, you see half Illinois cars most of the time on Highway 30 as you're in Liberty Square and stuff. So with that is, what's the spark that then says, hey, you know what? I'm not going to be driving there anymore. I'm just going to go and I'm going to live there. Well, you got to make sure you have security. So we've put a lot of focus in the last 5 years, as Chief Juring has, on the police. And we have the one-offs, like, happen occasionally, but you got to deal with those. Same thing with fire, and same thing with, codes. So really the change has been, is if you look at the fires across the board, they continue to go down. And that's really based on International Property Maintenance Code. That's based on the building codes that we have that basically say, we want you to be in a safe and secure environment, whether you own your house or whether you rent your house, or crime-free housing. Now that we have 42 different landlords that have signed up for this, they can actually sue who they're renting to. So who's coming from Newton, Iowa, or from Norwalk, Iowa, right? So you can start seeing that ahead of time, so we don't have that here. And really just saying, this is not going to be the place you're going to be doing nefarious activities, because it is a loving community. It is a caring. We want our kids on all our fields playing sports and playing band instruments and out there marching and stuff. And so they can grow up safe and secure. And then they pick this to be their home as well. So it is, there's a lot of things that go into it, just not one person. it takes many. It's like they say, it takes many to raise a village, or the one village person. But I think that's, staying true to character, and really goes back to, and I've said this some people have kind of given me rib shots on it, but specific, methodical, and consistent. The way that you are in life, being specific on what the vision is, what you're going to do, methodical each and every day, making sure that what you're doing at your job is making things better, and consistent, showing up, being there, keeping the same standard, not making new standards because it's a friend or a relative or something, but it's because that's the right thing to do. And I think that sets the stage of being the Clinton's a place that has high expectations, that has high respect for you, that's the place you want to work, it's the place you want to live, and it's the place you want to raise your family. And I think that really says a lot. I hear from folks when we're part of the League of Cities, right? And that's city administrators, mayors, council members go. And I'm hearing back from friends I went to college that are hearing from our city manager, man, what are you guys doing in Clinton? You guys, I keep hearing you just like are moving out and doing great stuff and making it exciting. And that's what needs to be done, because if we sit still, and we won't prosper, we won't move forward. But and I like this saying too, is like, as from World War II, but as you get closer to a target, you get more flack. So, and I always tell my staff too, is like, dogs don't bark at parked cars. If there's barking going on, it's okay. And that maybe because they just don't understand what's happening, say a citizen, we'll inform them, we'll direct them to our ordinances. This is what's going on. And then it'll make sense. And people have to remember is an ordinance is like a living embolism, right? It's not an embolism, but a living microscopic thing, right? Meaning that if you don't like it, it's made by people, then come in and help us change it. So like whether we're going through a tent ordinance or RV ordinance or whatever it may be, is we have 72 different ordinances, but have like hundreds involved in those 72. And we've probably worked on just about every one. But if someone doesn't like that, then that's what they come in to do. That's why you elected your council members to say, let's take a look at that. So I think anything should be able to be a topic. Anything should be able to be discussed. I know the paper said clash. I think it's conversation. You have to have good conversation. You have to be able to disagree at times. But at the end of the day, when it's all done, it's done, because it's not personal. It's just trying to make the city better.
And maybe you came in with projects to talk about, but we'll talk about other stuff. But what are some of the projects that you point to over the last 5 years that says, I'm proud of this project? Do you have a priority list, 1, 2, 3, or what does Matt Brooke like to point to as, hey, we got this done, and in the city? What's on that list for Matt Brooke?
Well, it's kind of interesting too, because it's you can see where my heart lies, but I go right to the World War I statue of Cornell, and I go to the Freedom Rock, and I think that's awesome. I think Miss Downtown, I call her Downtown Karen, but working to get the banners up, right, and highlight that come up in the spring and summer time frame. I think the recycling was a great piece to move over to single stream recycling. I think all the projects within the engineering of the continued work on the separation of the sewers, also continued work on roads. We went from like a 35 condition index to almost 65 now. And we still have that. I was on the team a couple of weeks ago. Davenport had 80,000 potholes last year. Now, I'm not sure if there was duplicates in there, but 80,000, that's a lot of potholes. Now, we do have some out there, but when you could drive up the Horseshoe Drive and ask those residents to live there now, I've never been on there, but it was like one of our worst roads in town that was just kind of hidden away. That's all been redone and concreted. Really proud of the engineering department. I mean, we have a very small engineering department that takes on, jobs that would be like a city 3 times our size. Like everything we've done by, with, and through the riverfront, being anointed Iowa Great Cities again, continuing to update from swings to chairs to small things, right? To even with the quiet zones and being able to redo the parking lots down there for both the pool and both for the Lumber Kings Stadium. I think those were fabulous projects as well. I near and dear to my heart, Jurgensen Soccer Complex, Josh Eggers and his team won the 2021 award for the best project in the state of Iowa. And that gives, that gives me a smile on my face, because I've used this before. I think you've heard me, but Carolyn Talbot would say when her kids were growing up, well, that's just as good as it gets. It's Clinton, they'd fall down and cut their knee on a seashell because the dirt and sand came from the river. No, that's not good enough. We need to have Iowa dirt that's fresh. We need to have irrigation, good grass to do that. So really proud of, each and every department. We're in the final phase in finance to actually migrate off of MS-DOS. I can't believe I'm saying that in 2022. The old 486 computer. So that's wonderful. And all the things that Anita's done there with engineering, I already mentioned with Jason Kraft, with the fire, with Joel and his team, basically updating all the stations now, getting everything up to par and all the equipment from Chief Jeering and the police, and continuing on really community policing, which means we're listening what's going on. We're not waiting 2 or 3 weeks. We're going out there. We had an example where we had a neighbor. He wasn't doing well, and he had some folks that were living there that shouldn't be. The neighbor let us know that. We got the nuisance officer involved. We got our police involved. We got the sheriffs involved, and rectified the situation, and we're able to get those folks out of there. So just one little shiny example there. But then across the board, bringing on Brian Lemke probably is a really proud moment myself, that we had an opportunity to have him come be Public Works, because we've reorganized Public Works. It's set up differently now, and they're able to tackle a lot of things, and they're doing smaller projects that they can be proud of as well. And I think that's really because they helped with like the Freedom Rock, and they helped with doing some, concrete work, and they help out doing that and besides solid waste and besides, sewer maintenance, they're doing all those other projects that they can drive by when they're off duty and know, hey, I did that project, and, make you proud. To even Bob, for Bob Milroy and his team, relocating the old headquarters from the wastewater treatment plant to the new RWF, and now he's consolidated. So he has his forces, as we say, but he has his personnel all in one location, to even having now a new septic drop off. So RV campers and septic tank people can, stop down at the RWF and do that. So lots of stuff.
Here's a personal question. So what, Matt Brooke, you mentioned go home at night.
Yep.
What does Matt Brooke do? You got 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
What does Matt Brooke do when he goes home?
Well, first I kiss my wife, give her a hug, and say hi. I try to do that at lunchtime too, if I get away for half an hour. And I like occasionally, lately, I do watch the world news, although it's kind of disheartening to do that. I try not to. I try to have a good dinner with my family. Of course, Darby's with us too. Try to read, although I think summertime I'll be able to kick it in high gear. I think I read about 50 books last year. I need to increase that, because once again, we should always be reading and improving our lot. But no, just try to relax. Jody will tell you I'm always writing stuff down or thinking as I'm watching shows or movies, but just basically think about what's around the next corner. What can we do? Usually getting up early, having my coffee, and kind of forecasting the day that's going to unfold and how we can best proceed. And some of these projects that are going to come to fruition here pretty soon have been going on for a long time, and it's just like, will it ever happen? But it will. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of patience, and that just being positive, because really believe this. It's an older book, but it was basically, think and grow rich, right? And I'm not looking at a pile of money. I'm looking at a beautiful city. And if we don't think about it, if we don't plan for it, if we don't visualize that it will happen, and that this will be, we're going to get everybody on board. Why are you going from 4 lanes to 3? Why are you going to have a nice trail that's 5 foot? If they can't see that and they can't believe that, it will never happen. So I try to just make sure that I'm planning and executing. And I don't know, I think I need to find some hobbies, is what she keeps telling me.
That's what Jody keeps saying.
Yes.
Find some hobbies, man.
Yes.
Well, you help around the house. That's probably
that's
that
definitely
probably
helps.
Yes. Matt, anything else you want? Anything you came in to say? We probably talked about stuff you hadn't planned on, but
Yeah.
here's your chance.
No, I was going to flip the script on you and say, I'm proud of you, Dave. You've had a lot of years in radio. We talked when we were walking and ran each other about your Alive Day back in July 26th. And I just want to commend you on, recovering and coming back. And it's always great to see you and hear you on the radio.
I appreciate it. Thanks. Matt Brooke, City Administrator, coming in today on our FYI program.
You're listening to AM 1340 KROL.